My name is Lena, I'm 32, and I used to believe that love could rewrite your past. That if you found someone gentle enough, kind enough, the things you regret would just dissolve into the background noise of a better future. I told him he was special. Adrian. And I meant it. God, I meant it. That's the worst part. When we first met at a friend's rooftop birthday, he handed me a cup of sangria with this boyish smile that didn't belong on a man with a career in finance. He asked if I wanted to stand closer to the edge to see the skyline better, not because he wanted to corner me or impress me, but because he really thought the view was worth sharing. That night, I didn't go home with him. The next 3 months, I didn't sleep with him either. He thought I was being cautious, respecting my boundaries. I let him think that. I told him I wanted to take things slow, but the truth? I'd already slept with his coworker, Mason, 3 months before I even knew Adrian existed. It was a mistake. Mason was cocky, charming, emotionally vacant. One night, and I never looked back. It didn't matter to me. Until Adrian showed up in my life like the man I didn't think actually existed, and suddenly, my past did matter. So, I built our beginning on the idea that he was different. I told him that. I used the word special. Like that somehow meant we were writing something pure, something more worthy than my other messes. Back then, he looked at me like I was made of glass and fire, fragile and dangerous, but worth holding anyway. The first few months with Adrian were warm and easy. We'd fall asleep tangled up, his hand on the small of my back, my nose pressed to his collarbone. Our mornings were soft, coffee in mismatched mugs, his kisses sticky with toothpaste. And I thought, this is what it means to be truly seen. But somewhere around month 10, the air changed. It wasn't dramatic. That's the thing, they never show you how quiet unraveling really is. He still kissed me goodnight, but sometimes his lips would linger like he was asking a question he didn't want the answer to. He'd wrap his arms around me in bed, but his hands started to feel more like possession than protection, like he was holding on to a version of me I was too tired to perform anymore. We stopped laughing as much. Or maybe we still laughed, but it felt like acting. Like we were playing the couple we used to be. I started pulling away when he touched me, not because I didn't want him, but because I didn't know how to want him honestly anymore. Not when every touch reminded me of the lie I built our intimacy on. He noticed, of course. One night, he pressed his forehead to mine and whispered, "Are we okay?" I nodded. Lied. Again. I don't think I realized something had shifted until one ordinary Tuesday night. I'd had a long day. He made pasta. We sat on the couch and ate straight from the pot, like we used to. My head was on his shoulder, his hand was stroking my arm. And I remember thinking, I should feel safe right now. But I didn't. I felt like a stranger being comforted by someone who loved a ghost. And just like that, the ache I'd been ignoring became impossible to hide. That was the night I realized something wasn't just off. Something was broken. And I was the one who cracked it. Adrian is a pediatric trauma nurse, which means he's good in chaos, great under pressure, and terrible at stillness. He thrives in adrenaline, in problems he can fix with his hands and his certainty. But love, this kind of love, the long-haul kind, the emotionally tangled kind, it's different. It doesn't bleed in ways you can see or stitch up clean. It's Wednesday. I'm in my bathrobe, hair wet, a towel wrapped around my head like a crown I don't deserve. I'm making tea because it's the only ritual I still believe in. He walks in from his shift, smelling like soap and antiseptic, throws his bag by the door, and immediately kisses the back of my neck. I flinch. I hate that I do. His hands slide around my waist. "You smell like oranges," he murmurs into my skin. "I missed you today." I smile, because I'm supposed to. But I'm already counting the steps to pull away, casually, not enough to wound him. "You look tired," I offer. "Long day. Had a 5-year-old with a ruptured spleen. Mom screamed at me for not doing enough, then thanked me an hour later." He laughs, but his shoulders are tight. "I kept thinking how you'd say it was misplaced grief. You're good at reading people." I nod, but I'm not really listening. I'm stuck on the way he's pressing against me, the way his fingers are dipping just under the edge of my robe. And it's not that I don't want him, it's that I can't feel safe in his touch when I don't feel seen first. Later, in bed, he reaches for me again. And again, I recoil, not a sharp rejection, but a soft shift of my body toward the far side of the mattress. Are we not doing this anymore? He asks. Quietly. Not angrily. Which somehow hurts more. I'm just tired. You're always tired lately. I want to scream. Not because he's wrong, but because he's not asking the right question. I want him to notice the real tiredness, the emotional fatigue of carrying a truth alone, of performing affection like a duty instead of a want. You think I don't want you? I ask. He pauses. I think you're pulling away. And I don't know why. And there it is. The gap between us made visible, finally. But instead of closing it, I retreat. Cowardice has always been easier than confession. You wouldn't understand, I say. That's the thing, Lena. You don't even give me the chance to try. The silence stretches long. Too long. He turns away. His back to me is a quiet accusation. I stare at the ceiling. I want to tell him that it's not him I'm punishing, it's me. That every time he touches me like I'm sacred, I remember that I started us on a lie. That I robbed him of honesty, and now I don't know how to rebuild us on anything else. But instead, I whisper, I'm sorry, and hope that's enough. He doesn't say anything back. I feel his body heat next to me, his breathing deepening as he drifts to sleep. I lay awake, craving the version of him I met at that rooftop party, the one who offered me a view and not a verdict. And I wonder if he's lying there craving the version of me who hadn't yet shut the door between us. We love each other. That's what makes this harder. Because sometimes love isn't the missing piece, it's just the glue holding the cracks together. There's something especially cruel about feeling lonely while someone you love is lying right next to you. This morning, Adrian made pancakes. Blueberry, because he knows I pretend to like bananas, but secretly hate the texture. He played that same tired lo-fi playlist we used to listen to when everything between us still felt like discovery. Extra syrup, just how you like it, he said, grinning as he placed the plate in front of me. Then, in that playful way he used to do when things were easy, he gave me a little slap on the butt as I passed him in the kitchen. I froze. He didn't notice at first, too busy flipping another pancake. But I felt my whole body stiffen like he'd pulled the wrong thread. Not because it hurt. Not because it was wrong. But because I didn't know how to receive it anymore. He turned around a second later, reading my silence like a chart. What? You're mad now. I forced a laugh that didn't reach my eyes. No. Just caught me off guard. He studied me for a second, the smile slipping, then nodded and went back to cooking. I sat at the table, chewing pancake like it was paper. We had plans later, dinner with friends, then maybe a movie at home. Normal stuff. Stuff couples do when they're okay. And yet, all I could think about was how much I was pretending again. How exhausting it was to perform a version of love when the real thing inside me felt so off course. That night, back in bed, he rolled toward me. His fingers trailed across my arm, soft and slow. He kissed my shoulder, then my neck. Gentle. Familiar. And something inside me recoiled. Not outwardly. I didn't jerk away or say no. But I tightened inside. Every muscle. Every nerve. I hated that. I hated myself for it. He pulled back slightly, sensing the shift. Do you not want me to touch you? I hesitated too long. I know, it's not that, I whispered, eyes fixed on the ceiling. He sat up slightly, hurt flickering across his face. It kind of is. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. How do you explain that it's not about the touch, but about what it represents? That every kiss, every graze of skin, feels like a debt I owe for keeping a secret too long. I don't know what's wrong with me, I said, voice cracking. It's not you. That's what everyone says before it absolutely is them. I'm trying, Adrian. His expression softened, but not in the way I needed. More like pity. like he was holding space for someone broken instead of fighting for someone he loved. I know, he said quietly, but trying doesn't feel like enough anymore. He lay back down, facing the wall. I stayed on my side, the silence between us loud enough to drown in. I used to ache for his hands on me. I used to wake up craving the weight of his chest against my back, the way he'd pull me closer without even opening his eyes. Now, every time he touches me, I flinch. Not because I don't care, because I do. But because intimacy has become something I overthink instead of surrender to. I want him. I do. But I want to be seen first. Heard. Understood. Not kissed like a fix. Not held like a puzzle piece that keeps sliding out of place. I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling until the fan blurred into a dull spin above me. And in the quiet, I asked myself the question that's been living in my throat for weeks now. Why does everything have to turn into sex? We were at dinner with his friends, well, mostly his. I'd met them all a dozen times before. The loud guy with the never-ending startup idea, the couple that overshares about their therapy breakthroughs, the new girl from Adrian's department who kept asking how we met like she hadn't already heard the story. Adrian had his hand on my thigh under the table. Casual, comfortable, possessive in that easy way men sometimes don't think twice about. He leaned over to whisper something, I don't even remember what, something flirty, something meant to land warm. But it didn't. It landed heavy, like expectation, like weight I couldn't keep carrying. So I stood up. Abruptly. I'm gonna use the restroom, I muttered, nearly knocking over my wine glass. Everyone paused for a second, then nodded and went back to their conversations like I hadn't just felt my chest splinter. I didn't go to the bathroom. I stepped outside instead, out into the sticky night air, my lungs suddenly too small for my ribs. A minute later, Adrian followed. You okay? He asked gently. I stared out at the empty street, the wet pavement reflecting the flicker of the neon sign above us. Do I look okay? He frowned. What's going on, Lena? I turned to him, my voice sharper than I meant. Stop touching me like that. Like what? Like I'm supposed to respond. Like if you just keep trying, I'll finally become the person I used to be. He blinked, clearly blindsided. I'm touching you because I love you. Because I miss you. You don't miss me. You miss who I pretended to be. You have no idea who I am now. He looked like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. No? You think just because you bring me coffee and kiss my shoulder, it means you see me. His voice dropped low. Hurt. I'm doing my best, Lena. But you keep pushing me away, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I should have stopped. But the words had built up too long. Months of tension, guilt, self-loathing. So I let them spill. I told you were special, I said bitterly. I said I wanted to wait. That it meant something. And the truth is, I'd already slept with Mason by the time I met you. He stared at me. Still. Silent. I wanted to rewrite the past, I whispered. I wanted to believe we were starting clean. And instead, I've just been pretending this whole time that I'm someone better than I really am. Adrian didn't yell. He didn't even flinch. He just looked at me like the floor had been ripped out from under him. You slept with Mason? I nodded, tears blurring the corners of my vision. He took a step back like I'd burned him. Before we met? Yes. But then I met you, and I couldn't go back and undo it, so I just built a new story. One where I was more careful. More worthy of you. He shook his head slowly. I didn't need perfect, Lena. I needed honest. I watched him walk back inside without another word. And I stood there, hands shaking, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. The shame came in waves. Not just because I told the truth, but because I waited until it became a weapon. I leaned against the brick wall and let myself cry. Not because I'd lost him yet, but because I'd never given him the real version of me in the first place. And now I didn't know if that version was even someone he could love. The silence between us wasn't loud. It was precise. No slammed doors. No dramatic sighs. Just space. Carefully measured. Like we were both afraid to touch anything that might break further. Adrian stopped making coffee for me in the mornings. I didn't blame him. He still made his, still filled the kettle, and set it back with care, but my mug stayed untouched on the shelf. It made sense. Coffee rituals were for people who trusted each other, who had reasons to smile before 9 a.m. I noticed small things first. He didn't play music when he cooked anymore. He stopped putting on cologne before bed. He started sleeping in his old t-shirts again, worn and stretched, like some part of him had deflated. And yet, he still came home every night, sat across from me in silence, took out the trash, cleaned his part of the closet. There was no explosion, no clear ending, just absence in motion. I missed him most when he laughed at something on his phone. The way he used to lean over and show me memes or dumb videos like every little thing was meant to be shared. Now, he just chuckled softly to himself, then tucked the screen away before I could look. One night I tried. I reached out. How was work? He shrugged. Fine. Pause. How's Mason? He looked up slowly, his face unreadable. He transferred to another division. Oh! Another pause. Heavy. He didn't fill the silence for me. And honestly, I didn't know what I would have done if he had. The guilt pressed on my chest constantly, like a tight belt I couldn't loosen. But it wasn't just about what I had done. It was about what I hadn't. I hadn't told him when I started feeling disconnected. I hadn't asked for help when I was spiraling. I hadn't admitted how afraid I was of not being good enough for someone like him. So I performed. I held back sex to make it feel meaningful, trying to overwrite the past instead of owning it. And I left him in the dark the whole time. I watched him one afternoon folding laundry, meticulous as always. He paused at one of my cardigans. The yellow one he always said made me look like sunlight. He held it for a second, then folded it slowly, carefully, as if it were breakable. That cracked something in me. Because he wasn't just angry. He was hurt. And he didn't know what to do with the version of me he was left with. Neither did I. I missed the way he used to look at me. Not just with desire, but with wonder. Like I was this vivid, whole thing he was still exploring. Now, he couldn't look at me without flinching slightly. And maybe that was the worst part, knowing I was the reason the wonder was gone. I sat on the balcony that night, wrapped in that yellow cardigan, thinking about the first time he told me he loved me. It was raining. I had been ranting about something, late trains or lukewarm lattes, and he just laughed and said, "God, I love you." Simple. Certain. I didn't deserve how sure he was. And yet, I wasn't sure if I was ready to let him go. But maybe love isn't about readiness. Maybe it's about truth, the hard, uncomfortable kind that doesn't always arrive in clean sentences or soft timing. I exhaled into the night and made a decision. Tomorrow, I would ask him to talk. Not to fix us. Not to rush anything. But just to start being honest again. Even if it meant hearing that he no longer wanted to try. Because for the first time in a long time, I realized something simple. Love can't exist where we keep hiding. The next morning, I found him on the couch, half asleep, a blanket pulled sloppily over his chest. He must have fallen asleep watching the late game, but something about it felt intentional. Like he hadn't wanted to take up space in our bed. I stood there for a second, just looking at him. There was stubble on his chin he normally wouldn't let grow. His arm was curled around the throw pillow like it meant something to him. And despite the distance, the quiet detachment between us, I still felt that stupid tug in my chest, like my body remembered what my heart had forgotten. I sat on the edge of the coffee table and whispered, "Adrian." His eyes opened slowly, blinking against the sunlight. "I don't know how to fix this," I said. He stared at me for a long moment. "I'm not sure it can be fixed." I swallowed. I need to say this. Not to change your mind. Just because I've been silent for too long." He didn't stop me. So I kept going. I lied. I spun a story about waiting and purity and meaning, and none of that was really about you. It was about me. I hated the version of myself I was before. I thought if I held out with you, maybe I could feel different. Maybe I'd finally be good. His mouth tightened. Just a little. I made you a symbol, I said. And that wasn't fair. You were never supposed to fix the part of me that felt broken. He didn't respond right away. Just sat up slowly, his eyes red-rimmed. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think I deserved you, I whispered. And the second I fell for you, the lie got too big to undo. He exhaled through his nose, rubbed his palms together like he was trying to warm them. You said I was special. You are. Then why did you make me wait for something you'd already given someone else? He asked, his voice low, quiet, and devastating. I felt the guilt rise up again, familiar and choking. Because I wanted it to mean something this time. But I guess I forgot that honesty means more than meaning. We sat in silence. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I noticed the way his hands trembled slightly. Then, he reached for mine. It was hesitant. Like muscle memory, like instinct wrestling with hesitation. But it was there. Warm, callous fingers brushing mine. I don't know if I can unhear it, he said. I don't expect you to. He nodded slowly. But I miss you. And I hate that I miss you. Because I don't even know who I'm missing anymore. I'll show you, I said, eyes brimming. No more performance. Just me. He squeezed my hand, just once, before letting it go. Then he leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead. A kiss with no promise. No conclusion. Just shared history. Shared pain. A silent acknowledgement of what we once had and what might still be buried underneath the debris. Later that night, he slept in the bedroom again. On his side of the bed, still facing away from me. But he was there. And in the quiet, as I stared up at the ceiling, I let myself feel the bittersweet ache of maybe. Not a reunion. Not yet. But a beginning. Of truth. Of slowness. Of us, whatever version we still had left. My name is Celeste, I'm 31, and I used to think love was something you could earn if you performed it perfectly enough. I used to believe if I said all the right things, if I waited the right amount of time, if I controlled how much I gave and when, I could rewrite who I was. But love doesn't work like that. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't reward performance. It doesn't follow formulas we create in our heads because we're afraid of being unloved as we are. You see, when I told Adrian I wanted to wait for sex because he was special, what I really meant was, I don't trust myself to be real with you. I was afraid. Not of him, but of being seen. Fully. Honestly. Flawed and messy and human. I thought I was giving him something sacred. But what I really did was hold him at a distance and call it romance. I didn't realize until it was too late that emotional intimacy means letting someone hold your past, not hide it from them. And desire? God. No one talks about how tangled desire becomes when it's wrapped in shame. When your body becomes a battleground between who you were and who you want to be. That's what happened to me. With Adrian, I wanted him. Deeply. But every time he touched me, I flinched because I couldn't separate his love from my guilt. And I couldn't explain that. Not without sounding broken. So instead, I punished us both in silence. I spent so much time trying to prove I was better now that I forgot to be present. And he felt that. Of course he did. He felt it when my kiss went cold. He felt it when I cuddled him with my body, but kept my heart 2 feet away. He felt it when I smiled during dinner, but my eyes kept drifting to the floor. People think heartbreak comes from betrayal. Sometimes it comes from absence. The absence of honesty. The absence of ownership. The absence of your full self in the relationship. Adrian stayed for now. We're talking. Slowly. We're not making promises, and I'm not asking him to forget. But I've stopped trying to be the perfect woman. And I've started being honest. With him. With myself. And what I've learned. Sometimes love isn't a fairy tale. It's not about grand gestures or clean timelines. Sometimes it's sitting across from the person you love, knowing you hurt them and still choosing to show up. Sometimes it's hearing that they don't know if they can ever feel the same, and staying anyway, Because love isn't always about getting what you want. It's about honoring what's real. And sometimes, if you're lucky, love gives you a second chance. Not to pretend again, but to be seen and to see them, too. So no, I don't know what happens next. But I know I'll never lie to be loved again. And I'll never confuse control with connection. Love starts where performance ends. And I think, finally, I'm ready for that. Tab 2.